Hello, everybody. Welcome to another little micro lab. My name is Brendan Ganton. I teach fisheries and some aquatics classes here at Lakeland College School of Environmental Science. I am joining you for this micro lab again from the tastefully appointed, recently renovated aquatics lab here at Lakeland. Today, I'm coming at you with a nice, quick microlab on some aquatic organisms. And today we're going to be talking about two groups, Hemiptera and Coleoptera. Big words, what it means to us, me and you, normal people. We're going to be talking today about bugs and beetles. And on the right hand side of your screen there, I know that's not an aquatic organism, that's a terrestrial. Ladybug, right? Ladybug. Everybody knows that one. Um, what we talk about today, and I'll frame it again with aquatic organisms, but what we learned today, you might be rethinking that common name that you've called that little ladybug your entire life. So let's learn a little bit about our true bugs and beetles. Our objectives for this microlab are pretty simple. We want to be able to reliably distinguish between members of the order Hemiptera, those true bugs, because if you're like me, you might use the term bug for everything under the sun, but we're talking specifically about our true bugs, order Hemiptera, and then also those we want to tell them apart from the members of order Coleoptera, our beetles. Um, that's the first. Is it a bug? Is it a beetle? Uh, and then we're going to have a little side objective, just a little value added for you guys joining me in this microlab. We want to increase some familiarity with some common representatives of these families. And the ones that we look at under the lab scope are actually going to be example of beetle and or bugs that you might find in water bodies close to your home, your own dugout, a river nearby your house, things, places like that. So let's go, right? Hemiptera are true bugs. Let's start there. Some key features and some information about our true bugs. Hemiptera, that order does contain many, many species. Just like that first picture of our ladybug, um, that's a terrestrial, and most true bugs will be terrestrial. So when in my course, when I teach you about aquatic organisms, we're going to consider only our aquatic species. And just take a look at that. Within Alberta, our province, yeah, we have a lot of diversity. So we have approximately 60 different species of true aquatic bugs in Alberta. But over half of those are going to be within the family of water boatmen. There in the top right hand corner, you can see an example of a water boatman, and you might be familiar if you've spent any time near water in Alberta, you'll be familiar with some of those guys. Uh, we also have some other bugs, water striders, you might be familiar with that lower right hand picture. Also, our back swimmers, sometimes we confuse them with boatmen, but they're going to be swimming around usually face up. Hence called back swimmers, but also water scorpions. That picture in the middle, that's an example of a water scorpion. Interestingly, the first described record of a water scorpion here in Alberta was back in about 2011, and it was students from Lakeland College on a lab uh, down in Cypress Hills Interprovincial Park, and they found water scorpions and talked to the Royal Alberta Museum and a number of other folks, and they hadn't been described or found in Alberta prior to then. So that seems to be, because now we're finding them all along eastern, southeastern Alberta, part of a natural range expansion, potentially some climate change influenced expansion of the territory of water scorpions. So the first ones were described here at Lakeland, and now we're actually finding them at a number of spots that we might visit. And then also giant water bugs. And we'll get a closer look at those today because I've grabbed some that we can throw under our lab camera. Giant water bugs. We sometimes commonly refer to them as toe biters. Okay, and here's a couple pictures of our giant water bug. Um, because they're so big and their feeding parts are so large, they're a great one to look at. So we can tell, and this is part of the way we tell them apart from beetles, is most aquatic bugs are predaceous, both as larvae and adults. And here's the key. Their mouth parts are modified to form a beak. Look at that top right picture, that sharp beak used for piercing and sucking their food. So other bugs, they'll pierce, put in a little enzyme, kind of liquefy their insides, and then suck out all the gooey good stuff from inside their prey. And here we have a really nice, big, large, giant water beetle, and he's got himself a fish. Pretty impressive predators. They can also inflict to us painful bites. I say it's really a painful piercing. Um, and that's why these giant water bugs have that common name of toe biters. Because imagine your toe being that small minnow. Youch, toe biters, a painful, painful bite you can get. And we do find them periodically in our water bodies throughout Alberta. Here's a second uh, key or second characteristic of our true bugs that will help us tell them apart from beetles. Um, both larvae and adults of aquatic bugs live in the water through most for their lives. They're aquatic bugs. Both are larvae and adults live in the water, though most adults do have wings and can fly pond to pond. So you might not think about it, but your water boatmen in your pond can actually take off and fly away. As our students often find out when they get those in their dish on the side of a river, hey, we collected these with a net. Some of them will start flying away. Uh, our giant water bug in the top right there, yeah, he also has wings, actually two sets of wings, and he uses the second pair for flying effectively. And they're four wings. That first pair of wings with our bugs are leathery. They're not entirely hard, they're leathery. And when they fold them over their back, they overlap to form an X pattern on the back. So my cursor is going to come here and just draw on our giant water bug. This X pattern here created by the leathery wings folding over the back. This X pattern. So we have our beak-like piercing mouth parts and this X pattern on the back. Two great ways to tell that it's a true bug. A little bit more information. They're primarily found in lake or pond systems, but they can occur in rivers and streams as well. So yeah, your dugout or your lake that you're visiting, that's where you might run into a true bug, but they do also occur in rivers and streams as well. For example, in fall, large numbers of our water boatmen that have spent all summer in small water bodies, sloughs, dugouts, winter's coming, they're going to freeze, so they all fly and migrate to our major rivers to overwinter. So the other week we were in the North Saskatchewan here in the fall, and it was completely water boatman as far as the eye could see. And when you swept your net through the water, that's what you got, a net full of water boatmen. What about the other side? Don't forget about the other creatures we were going to talk about today. Coleoptera are beetles. We know a lot of beetles from the terrestrial system because they are so common. It is the largest order of insects. And actually, there's more described beetles than just about any other organism out there. 250,000 described species, and most are entirely terrestrial. But there are some that are aquatic. So when considering just those aquatic species within Alberta, here where I'm sitting, the largest family is actually the predaceous water beetle family in Alberta, and that comprises about there's about 150 species of predaceous water beetles in the province. And just for example, another that we might commonly see in a lot of our water bodies, or you might be familiar with, is the Whirly Gig Beetles. That bottom right hand photo is a great picture of a Whirly Gig Beetle. And you'll just see them out there zipping around the surface of the ponds. They're really famous for swimming around and whirling around the surface of our small water bodies. Just like our bugs, most aquatic beetles are carnivorous. They're predators as larvae and as adults. However, and here's one way we can tell them apart, the mouth parts of our beetles are adapted for chewing and biting. They don't have that piercing beak. They have mouth parts adapted for chewing and biting. And so here we have somebody took a picture of their giant water beetles eating a goldfish that likely died in their tank. And so they're making quick work of chewing and digesting, breaking down that small goldfish. Beetles chewing mouthparts. And in aquatic beetles, both the larval adult stage again live in water. Just like our bugs, they can fly. Most adults have wings and can fly. There's a great picture in the top right of an adult beetle, and its four wings, unlike the bugs, are not leathery. They are modified into hard covers, and we call those elytra. You might remember elytra if you played any sort of Minecraft. Um, but those hardened covers, those wings, which they actually meet in a straight line over the animal's abdomen. So, checking out my cursor, here's a great picture in the lower right. This beetle has these hardened wings, elytra, and they meet in a straight line down the back. Right, okay, so we have those two things separating our bugs and beetles: chewing versus piercing mouth parts. Then we have our leathery and an X pattern versus a hardened elytra with that straight line down the back for our beetles. A little bit more information about our beetles. Some adults and larvae have legs modified for swimming, and we can see that top right picture as evidenced by the presence of those long swimming hairs, especially on the rearmost legs, modified for swimming. In a few, like that whirligig beetle that we mentioned, this whirligig beetle here has a couple specialized features. He's so specialized for water. Those legs are so highly modified, just like paddles, that they're no longer effective for terrestrial locomotion. And a really, really cool thing about our whirligig beetles when we get them in the lab is check out his eyeball. This is a separated eyeball. So it's the same eyeball, but there's a top half and a bottom half. What a neat guy. He's modified so heavily for being in the water. He has basically one part of his eyeball looking down into the water and one part of his eyeball looking up into the terrestrial realms. Okay, so he's definitely highly modified to live in his aquatic habitat. So let's take a minute and jump over to the lab camera and take a look at these parts in reality in a couple bugs and beetles that were caught in water bodies in and around Vermilion here. There we are, our predaceous or giant water bug. And the first distinguishing feature we talked about, dead giveaway, this piercing, sucking mouth part. Okay. Uh, that is the mouth part of a bug. Let's take a look above. This is a really healthy specimen. This giant water bug back. And so you can really nicely see on this guy, because he's so large, these forewings, leathery forewings that overlap and fold over on his back. And this gives us that V or X shape, this X shape on his back formed by his wings being folded over. His forewings are leathery and folded over. Okay, don't get motion sickness, but I'm going to jump over to our predaceous diving beetle. Let's take a look at this organism's mouth parts. There's a good look, and we can see, unlike our bug, this guy has mouth parts modified for chewing and biting. Okay, looks a little bit like some sort of alien being. Chewing, biting mouth parts. Then last, let's take a look at his little bit bigger buddy. And here again, we see his forewings. Tap, 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 tap. Not leathery. They're hardened, that hardened elytra, and they don't overlap. So what do we have? What do we see? This straight line formed down his back by his hardened elytra, which is protecting his abdomen from damage. Beetle versus bug. All right, and we're back. I hope you guys enjoyed our little trip to the document camera, and we'll think twice next time you're dipping your feet into your lake. A real quick review for you guys before I let you go. Compare contrast, yeah, our true bug. Mouth parts are going to be formed into a piercing beak. The forewing material is going to be leathery and folded over to make that X shape on their back. Our beetle, mouth parts modified for chewing. The forewing material is that hardened elytra, It doesn't overlap, so we have that straight line down the back of our organism. I know that you guys are all going to be experts at distinguishing our members of order Hemiptera, true bugs, from the members of order Coleoptera. So that first objective, yeah, I think we hit the nail on the head. That second one, increase some familiarity with some common representatives of these families, ones you might find in your dugout in your lake. I think we did that too. Um, Last takeaway point, since we are so great, I just want to draw your attention back to here to our terrestrial ladybug that we mentioned at the get go. Uh, I don't presume that I'll be able to change your mind and have you call it by its proper common name, the lady beetle, but at least when you call it a ladybug, if someone asked you, you would know better. Thanks so much for joining me. My email is there at the bottom, brendan.ganton at lakelandcollege.ca. If you're interested and have any further questions for me or interested in joining us here at Lakeland in the fall, send me an email. I can get you in touch with the people who can either get you the answers that you're looking for or connect you with enrollment specialists at the college. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you later.